Okay, what we got here is what used to be my shed. I've torn off a lot of the outside panels because they were rotten through. When I got underneath, I saw stuff like this where on this corner you can kind of see the structure and how it's supposed to be. This is elevated right now as that's part of my plan, but what we got here is 2x4, 2x4, a gap because the shed is lifted, and then kind of the frame and structure. As you go across, you can see that that 2x4 is pretty non-existent, and actually some of the underneath boards just altogether disappear due to wood rot, so they're pretty much gone under there. This is the good side. If you down here, you can see that there's board, and then more boards. As you go across, again, this thing is lifted up, so it's not quite the way it would be. The 2x4s that are underneath the flooring somewhat exist, and I'm going to guess that as I go across and start peeling this paneling off, that it's going to be different for each one of those. But this side's actually in pretty good shape. I don't know if you're able to see that, but as you go along the side, you can see that there are actually boards under there. The 2x4s that this is resting on are actually in place for the most part. When you hit this front corner, it's real interesting over here. I mean, we have boards, but a lot of them are just missing. And again, I think either maybe there was some repairs over the years in double quotes, or they just disappeared. But I think that this front board, again, we're at the front of the structure now where I first started. I think that first board has been replaced. Previous owner possibly noticed there was a problem and put some good board in there, but didn't replace the underneath boards and didn't do the rest of the structure. Hence, this looks good and bad at the same time. Alright, the shed is in the air. You can see the gap. You see the jack doing its thing. You can see the beams that I used to reinforce the structure all the way around. To basically keep structural integrity, since so much of the shed is now missing. However, I left these side panels on. I wanted more stability, but as I'm getting over here and trying to think about how to reinforce the structure underneath, propping it up so I can actually work safely, I'm finding that these panels have to come off. And so I got the skill saw out, set the depth very, very shallow, did a couple test cuts to make sure I got it right. Then I just run it along the midpoint of that, because these boards are tucked way up underneath the structure. And with the way the ground is and where this raised bed is, it was really hard to get them out. So I'm just cutting them in half and taking the bottom half out. I'll give you an example of what that looks like. So then just cut the bottom half off. And now I've exposed the sides, and you can see over here what we're looking at. Again, the shed is raised right now, and you can see the problem I'm having is that these bottom boards, the base boards it's stood on, didn't come up on this side. They stayed down because there was so much structural damage. When you get back to this corner where things were in better shape, the structural boards came with supporting beams, I should say. So what I got to do is, really, it's just this corner now. I've been going around and breaking that free, breaking the nails that were holding it together so that everything drops. Because ultimately, while this board's in pretty good shape and it may survive and stay to fight another day, the rest of the boards around the structure are going to have to be replaced. And ultimately, I'm going to raise it up some. But in the short term, because it's being held up on jacks, I need to get some other boards underneath this just in case something goes wrong. This has been sitting up like this for about an hour, which is long enough. I mean, ultimately I would have it secured by now, but you can see I've got a lot of soil to remove. This thing has sunk in the mud over the years, and you can see that there is mud on top of the beams. It's not supposed to be that way, so I got to remove that, clear those off, put 2x4s in there to support it, and then as I need to, I will raise or lower a given side to work in that section just to keep things safe, and in case something does fail. If one of these beams should break or one of the lag bolts holding it together should give out, it'll only drop a few inches in one corner as opposed to the whole structure collapsing at once, which I feel like a rickety shed like this it could be the end of the shed. So that's what I'm doing now. Okay. All right, so I have cleaned this side pretty well. That board there is just for reinforcement in case anything goes wrong, kind of a safety thing. And that's what I'm trying to get in place right now. But as you look across, I have cleaned off the boards that are under here, and this is again the good side. This is the side that had much more things intact. So moving across, you can see that I've cleaned it up, gotten the dirt off. My plan is, in the short term, to put a board on there, a 12-foot long, excuse me, a 16-foot long board to support it in case the structure falls. Of course, that's one thing, and that will be a permanent board. But ultimately, I've got to replace these supporting 2x4s right here that go under the structure all the way across. As we come along to this side, the clean off has not been done. It's been started, but just so to let you see what I'm working with here, as we raise this up, you can see it's just dirt under there. So that's the floor. The beams come down. You can see that you can't see those supporting boards. You get to the end, you can see it's there. There's a board, but it's going to need another board on top of it. And I guess as we get over to this side, where you can see the floor is in the worst shape. This is where the pet door was installed by the previous owner. That was leaking water into the structure. My guess is that supporting beam under there may be non-existent in this spot. So we may have to rip it out, put a new one in, then put another one on top of it to get the shed up to the right height. But that's what we're facing now, is getting those kind of supporting beams underneath and getting this thing secured so I can start doing the work underneath. And again, my intention is never to put anything, not even a finger, under this structure when it's up in the air. But I do have to get it safely secured so that I can run 2x4s underneath, pull out nails from the top, put new nails in to support them. Okay, it's been cleaned up. I've got some boards added. You can see now the main board under there actually is in pretty good shape. It goes all the way down this side, and this is what I was calling the bad side earlier. So I put another UC4 board, which is pressure treated, available for soil contact, approved for soil contact. One of those boards under there, a 2x4, running that all the way down. Again, you can see the damage to the boards that are running underneath here. So I haven't set this back down under its own weight yet. I need to get an idea of how bad those boards are, and I'm gonna start in the back over here, and my plan then is to start with this beam on the outside and then work my way through. If that means I have to rip up the floors in here to get an idea what's going on, I don't think the normal person would have to actually rip up the floor. I'm ripping up the floor because I have these raised beds on both sides, so it's going to be very hard to tuck a piece of 2x4 all the way across and span that whole thing and rip out the old ones. I think on my case it's going to be easier just to pull the flooring up, expose all the boarding, and replace them one piece at a time, jacking up the structure as necessary to accomplish that. This is the moment where you lift up a floorboard and realize maybe you shouldn't have been standing in here. Yeah, this 2x4 here is in pretty good shape, and that one is obviously damaged, and part of it came up with the floor. But over here, I mean, there's just barely remnants of the 2x4 that used to be there. It's kind of amazing that it's just gone. Makes me wonder if it was not the right type of wood or what happened with that, but yeah, it's gone. So we'll be replacing that one.